Everyone really is talking about that eviction yesterday in Killiney. The video has gone viral on the internet now. We've heard the audio a lot. We'll listen to it again in just a moment. But speaking this morning, the Social Protection Minister, Joan Burton, said it was critical that the banks engage with families to ensure that they're not evicted from their homes. Joan Burton said she couldn't comment specifically on the case of the Kellys, that's the family involved, but she said the government is committed to making sure that evictions like this one just don't happen.
The government has said that we want to ensure that people retain their family home, and I think the critical issue there is that there has to be engagement and serious engagement between the bank and the family with a view to making that something that simply doesn't happen.
But this is something that's happening in the internet age, so when it does happen, we get to find out about it very, very quickly. A lot of people were very aware of this particular case in Killiney in Dublin very soon after it happened yesterday because of the internet. We're talking about an elderly couple, Brendan and Asta Kelly. Now, they spent the night on the street after they were forcibly removed from their property yesterday. All of their possessions are still inside. You may have seen it, you may have heard it already, but you cannot but be impacted by the sounds and the noises and the screams and the calls that happened as the family were evicted.
Take your hands off me. Hey, look, take your hands off me. Take your hands off me. Take your hands. I'm not leaving and take your hands off me.
We have to have you outside and we have the authority to put you out on that path. And that is what's going to happen.
Please, sorry. Please. Get away! 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 Get away from me! Get away! Get away! Get away from me! Get away from me! Get away from me! Leave him alone! The Anglo-Irish Bank! Anglo-Irish Bank! And look at him! Look!
That was the scene in Killiney in Dublin yesterday. We're joined on Newstalk Lunchtime by Ben Gilroy, who's part of the Defend Our Homes League, which was an organisation set up to prevent further repossessions and evictions. A lot of attention today on this particular case, but we'll move away from that specific situation first of all to talk about the wider reality across the country. I mean, Ben, there are protections in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening, aren't there?
Of course, yes, and we would ask everybody to contact us in People for Economic Justice. You can go onto the website, and anybody facing eviction from the sheriff, get on, and there's huge help there.
What rights do we as Irish homeowners have? There's a lot of people who are in difficult financial situation. They're wondering how far removed are they from the situation that was facing the Kellys yesterday. What protections exist?
Well, there's huge protection under the Constitution. As a family home, it's protected higher than any statues, any man-made statues. So that would be the court order, and people just need to know how to invoke it. It's not a get-out-of-jail card for people who just decide not to pay their mortgage. But there is protection there, because a lot of the troubles that the country finds themselves in is through fraudulent activity of banking. And then the bankers got bailed out. Especially Anglo-Irish, who are the crux of the problem in the country. I mean, these guys got bailed out, and they've the audacity to start dragging people in their 70s out of their home. I mean, it's absolutely so distasteful. It's like history replaying itself in this country.
Do we not run the risk of running away with it here, that, there is money that is owed? The law that stands is the law as it stands, and if people don't engage, or if they don't get in contact with the bank and talk it through, then the inevitability is that this will happen if you don't play the bank's game.
Absolutely, but look, and you're right in saying it is a bank's game. And it's a game that they lost, but no matter how they seem to lose, they always win. I don't know anyone who doesn't engage the bank. I mean, we help, as you know, an awful lot of people. We engage the bank first, and then it ends up in court if they won't move from their position, and the courts have very little sympathy, and then it ends up with the sheriff, and then ends up with this being dragged out of the home. And somewhere there has to be protection for the people. I mean, the government went into power promising this wouldn't happen and that there would be write-downs of mortgages, and they have even put finance in place into the banks to cushion the blow for people who can't pay, because the bank guarantee scheme that went in did allow for that, and it's not been used. And this is the position. So at this stage, then, we would be asking people to invoke the Constitution, and we will show them how to do it and get in touch.
On the basis of that, now, as I said, there are people who are out there who have been unable to pay their mortgage. I mean, I don't know what stage they're at with their bank, but what protocols are there? Just explain what the protocols are. You mentioned the Constitution there. How do you think that couldn't protect people?
Well, because in the Constitution it says a man's dwelling is inviolable except as to law.
Yeah, but the law states the bank can take it off you if you don't pay the bill.
Well, the law doesn't actually state that, you see. That would be on a signed contract binding both parties. In most cases, there isn't one. Also, the family, being the most protected in all society, is protected higher than any man-made statute. So, I mean, you can't get higher than that, right? So unless they have a signed letter from God, they better produce that.
What constitutes the family home? You mentioned family home there. Do you have to have the kids living under the roof?
No, I mean, it's in the Constitution, so you're going to go back to the people and ask them exactly what they meant, because the Constitution is written by the people. So that's not lawyers or barristers, by the way, that's the people. And my understanding of a family home is, and if I'm not actually mistaken in the literal translation from Irish, it's the dwelling. And the dwelling is wherever you put your head down. Yeah,
but what's your background, Ben? Is that coming from a constitutional law background, or is that just a hope or a belief that that's what the Founding Fathers wanted us to understand?
Well, the Constitution is in quite easily English language. It's not written in the legalese language that we have to get it explained. I mean, it says what it says, and that's exactly what it says. I know you can turn words around to mean different things, but that's exactly what it says. And if somebody can point to me that it doesn't say that, well, that's fair enough. I'll stand corrected. But all I'm saying is that's what it says, and check it out.
Were you in a situation yourself about being in debt in your mortgage? What can you tell us about that?
I'm in trouble with my mortgage, like an awful lot of people in this country. I mean, I've seen a report here today. 1 in 5 children go to bed hungry at night, while bankers are getting bailed out to the tunes of billions. I mean, it's laughable. I mean, laughable that people are getting evicted from their homes while their taxes are paying the bailout packages to these banks.
And in your situation, are you afraid that you'll lose your house?
Of course, yeah. But I mean, at all times, I'll try stay with the bank and do what we can. And you know, I'm not afraid to put my cards on the table and show what I get. But if they're not moving to try and come meet me halfway somewhere, you know, I don't know what we can do except fight the sheriff. So what else can you do?
Can you fight the sheriff, though? Because the sheriff does have the law on his side. He's got a court order in his paw every time he turns up to one of these events.
Yeah, well, you know, Constitution trumps the order, I'm afraid.
But the courts operate under the Constitution. Well, the courts operate under the Constitution. There's a big harp over the judge's head when he's signing the order.
Oh, there is, yeah. That's right. They're under the Constitution, not above it. That's the point. So you're exactly right there in what you're saying. He's not above the Constitution. And neither are the Gardaí. They're sworn to uphold the Constitution, not to uphold orders from the courts. That's secondary. They have to uphold the Constitution. That's their oath.
Ben, the reality of this, how many more of these are we going to see, do you think? Or is this going to be... Do you genuinely believe that this is going to become more commonplace in the neighbours on the side of the street?
I know loads right now who are facing eviction have an order and there's a stay on them. And in some cases the stays will be up now in the next month or so. So there's loads. So that's why in my talk we talk about bringing back direct democracy to this country.
What do you mean by what's direct democracy?
Direct democracy is something we had in our first constitution. And basically it gives power back to the people. You could call, if you gathered enough votes and you felt strongly about something, you could call enough votes and you would force a referendum. They took that out of our constitution while we weren't watching, and it didn't come back in. And that's why we go around the country now talking and looking for support for direct democracy. Because you had a government of Fianna Fáil who created this awful mess. And of course, this thing will be passed on to our children if we don't grab the thistle. And then you had the likes of Noonan and his cohorts promising this wouldn't be done. And then they get into government and do exactly the opposite. That's not democracy. You know, that's pure blatant disregard for the people's wants in this country.
But do you not accept that there's a process that's been gone through here, that this can't be solved overnight?
Of course it can't. But I mean, like, you know, remember, the banking problem was solved overnight, during the night.
Quite literally.
When they bailed out these bankers. And I don't see many bankers getting dragged out onto the street.
Okay, Ben, I know you're in Castlebar this evening. There's an event there, People for Economic Justice, which is your movement. Where is it on in Castlebar?
The Welcome Inn Hotel in Castlebar at 7:30. It's a free event and all are welcome.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ben Gilroy from the Defend Our Homes League. Thanks very much for talking to us. That's an organisation set up to prevent further repossessions and evictions of people facing financial hardship. He's under the belief that there's a lot more of those to come.